Okay, so we started the recording late, and we can thank Braden for doing that. I just went over a few details about yeah, about the assignments. Thanks, Braden, for that. Anything else from anybody? Okay. How
Yeah.
about, oh, sorry, Maria?
Yeah, so I think I chose to do my presentation on the 7th. So is that going to be on Zoom? Am I going to do it in front of everyone on Zoom, or how's that going to work?
Okay. I've sent some emails, but I'll go over it again. So you're in your group. All right. I believe, Maria, you're in group 2. You need to consult with the members in group 2 and figure out a time where they can all be there and they can watch you teach. All right. The group 1 people, they're going to do their own thing. Group 2 people, you need to be there for them when they teach. All right.
Okay.
My teacher sense is that this is taking a little longer to put together than would if we were doing it in class. My teacher sense is, I don't know if some groups are frustrated with some groups in their members in their group, but folks, we got to nail down these times. So I know group 1 seemed to have their times laid out. Group 2, a couple groups did, but you need to make sure everybody can make it at that time. Like, for instance, one group I think was saying they're going to meet on April 2nd. Well, that's Good Friday. Now, it might not be a good fit because it is a stat holiday and it's Good Friday, but I'm not going to tell you what you can or cannot do. If people really want to meet that day, so be it. But make sure everybody's on board with it. It's a pain in the butt trying to coordinate this. I realize that. One benefit, though, is I'm not having you do a mini project for the next 2 weeks. There's no readings or anything the week after Easter, okay? So I'm trying to set this up so it's valuable, but I'm trying to be cognizant of your other demands as students. Does that make sense, Maria?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. So I think I'll look over the list again. I'll look over the email. I'll mass email the people who are in my group, and from there, I think we'll probably figure something out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Get an email going and saying, I can meet at this time. Can you meet it, and it's going to get around there. Any other thoughts? Sarah, do you got a question or a thought?
Not really. I think a mass email would be good just to figure out our group times and stuff.
Okay. How about you, Saria? How are things looking?
Things are pretty good so far.
Okay. I'd ask Adam, but he's having lunch right now, so I can't do that. All right. And Andrew, you're good? Okay, super. All right. If there's any concerns, be sure to reach out to me if there's problems. Again, once you have your time set, you also need to set up a Zoom meeting. Can students set up a Zoom meeting on their own? I think you can do that at your U of A. Yeah, okay. So set up a Zoom meeting and paste the link on our sheet on that Google Doc, because I'm going to try to get to at least half of these meetings. And in doing so, I know where to access that. Okay, so I'm not like emailing people and trying to figure this all out. So it's all public.
One thing we might need to do is that each lesson has their own Zoom link, because if they go over 45, like it runs out just with the way Zoom works with like Zoom Premium or whatever. So we might have to do that.
Okay, well, let's do that. Because I know on the university account, I think it's pretty much unlimited, or it goes for quite a while, but students might not have that, is what you're saying, Adam. Okay, that's good to know. Jadalyn, you're doing well? You're good with all that? Okay, good. So if you have any concerns, send me an email. If somebody's, having problems setting up times or something, reach out to me. We'll figure it out. I know group 1 has Mitchell in it. Hello, Mitchell. And Mitchell, of course, is teaching full-time. So they got to figure out a time. It's a little tougher with him, but they have one less group to present in. And that's why I did that, because I knew Mitchell would be a little tougher to figure out. Good. Okay, let's move along. Back to the screen share. Okay. Let's go. Thanks for your for the mini projects this week. I found that it was more open-ended, and so there's a lot of variety in what people came up with, ways to engage or the importance of engaging the moral and the spiritual dimensions in religious education. And in a sense, what we're talking about too is a larger religious education that Catholic or Christian schools do. One thing that you might want to consider if you're thinking, you know, Dr. Orban, I don't know if I'm going to teach in a public school or Catholic school. Maybe some of you think it doesn't really matter to you. All right. That's your own choice. The one main difference with them, just so you have a sense of it, is that both support democracies and this idea of openness, values, and whatnot that go along with it. But with Catholic schools, there's a specific image of their goal, their philosophy. All right. And that is to become like Jesus. All right. That's the point of Catholic education, that we're more like Jesus. And so that means whether in my moral life, intellectual life, spiritual life, all these things, that I become a little bit more like Jesus. And in public schools, even though they support these values and this and that, there isn't a clear understanding or a philosophy behind it. All right. So it's just good to be thinking about that. In that's one difference with Catholic schools, Christian schools, is more of a refined sense of what the point is. Okay, so let's look at moral and character development. Then these two parts. I'll go into the full share here. Sorry about that. We're going to start off with a scenario. So think about the reading that you did on character development, and we did a little bit on moral development. And I want you to think about the scenario, and we're going to split you up into groups. Okay. I stole the artwork from one of the groups here. I thought it was fitting. And another group had this idea of tensions, why you might be walking a fine line doing moral education in schools. And I thought this is a great scenario. So thanks to those two groups. And this is what I've made from that. So think of yourself as a university student speaking to another university student. Here's the scenario. Really? You're going to teach morality in schools today? Don't you know there's so many different ethno cultures and diverse groupings that it makes it impossible to have a shared common morality? If anything, this attempt feels like you're bringing in religion through the back door, so to speak. Who are you to determine right or wrong, or to tell others that there is no such thing as morality, or there is such a thing as morality? I blew it. Okay, so think about that phrase. I'm going to send you into small groups. So I'm going to stop my screen share right away to do that. So if you want to just make a note of what I've said or take a quick screen catch of it, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to ask you to think about this and to talk about it in your group. So, and please don't just give your opinion. What I want you to think about is, where can you draw from the readings, from your mini project discussion that you had already, and what you've done there, and your own experiences. All right. Based on those, what kind of a response would you say to this university student? Any questions on that? Okay, so I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to do some breakout rooms. Let's go there. I got 4 separate rooms. Okay, any last questions? All right, I'll give you a few minutes to think of your response, and we'll come back and we'll hear what you think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just kind of going off of what you said about like not necessarily like teaching specific to like Christianity or something, but just teaching good character in general doesn't have to be based on religion. It's just there's universal rights, I guess, for humans
Yeah,
that don't
absolutely.
necessarily have to
And like
be.
also that practical piece too, like giving them like the opportunity to make their own decisions through that thinking and then presenting it in different ways rather than just, you know, religious based or that kind of stuff too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the first reading or the second reading. I'm trying to bring it up, but with under the moral knowing part, there is like decision making, like perspective taking, moral awareness. So yeah, just kind of teaching to that and not necessarily like just because you're teaching morality doesn't mean you have to like fill it with Christianity values. Like
Mhm. It
yeah.
also goes into like the integrity piece too, like the integrity of the students and kind of giving them the opportunity to, you know, think about what is right and wrong too. So, yeah.
Do you get nervous thinking about teaching morality in schools? Or does that like, wow, that's just part of being a teacher?
I think you could have like some pushback, like especially when you're in like the junior high and high school level, like, you know, a student may be like, well, I'm not in the wrong, like I'm right. So what,
Mhm.
like, what do you mean? Or what are you trying to say? So like, that's the part maybe that's a little bit more not nerve wracking, but maybe challenging because you are, you know, you still have to kind of lead them in the right path, but they can also push back and be like, well, I think this is right. So this is what I'm gonna, you know, this is the decision that I'm gonna make. So.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And where's that line? How much do I push them on this or to think it
Yeah.
through? I thought that model was helpful of the three circles about the knowing and the feeling and the acting
Yeah.
morally. Because then you realize even just getting somebody to be aware of different moral stances or feeling or being aware how you feel when you do something good, that's actually helping somebody cultivate their moral sense in the person.
Very true.
What did you think, Braden? How did you feel cool with it? Good to engage in a moral education?
Yeah, like I hadn't really thought about it too much before. Um, but yeah, kind of just thinking about it right now, it might be like kind of weird, yeah, if you do get the pushback, because then suddenly if I say something that I assume is just like like moral across the board, um, some people might not necessarily agree with that based off what they grew up with. So yeah, it's gonna be hard to like think about all that.
Yeah, yeah. And my attempt isn't to make you to overwhelm you, right? Or that you have to be the moral police in the school, right? But
I don't.
I just had a sense when I was teaching, and maybe I'll share this with the big group, is that like I was teaching grade 6, and I just had this sense of um, I I, I kind of have to be some kind of a moral authority in some sense as a teacher. I'm the adult in this room, and how are we going to live together in this classroom, and how we treat one another?
That's
Mhm.
kind of like the concept too of like natural law and like what's naturally right and wrong goes like hand in hand with like morality as well. So.
Nice. Where are you pulling that natural law stuff from, Kenzie? You're just getting a
um,
gold star from your professor today with that one.
sorry. I'm taking Christian Theology 250 as well too, so I'm kind of like piggybacking
Okay.
ideas off of both. But yeah,
Oh, good. Yeah,
I plan
natural
to teach
law.
in the Catholic school system, so I wanted to have both of those courses just to have, and because I know we need them. So
Okay. Well, I know Dr. Keyser. I'll tell her. I'm
okay.
getting told about natural law in class today. Right. So you know what? It's kind of neat. Just to the other two, I sure would have known natural law when I was an undergrad, but that sense, yeah, that there is some kind of natural, just that sense of conscience that there is a right and wrong,
Mm.
and that human beings are asked to do what is right and good. I always think of it that even if I do something wrong, if I cheat, I always make up an excuse. Like, yeah, but he did it to me too. You know, I was just getting back at that person, right? There's that sense of living with each other that we that we need to be good to one another, right? And of course, the commonalities amongst religions too. Anyways, let's stop there. I'll call the groups in. Thanks for your ideas. And I will bring this, I'll close down these breakout rooms.
So Matt, there was actually a problem within my group. They wouldn't let me speak at all. So I left the group. It was two guys. I do not remember their names at all, but they were just being rude. I was trying to speak, but they were just talking amongst themselves. And I don't know, I just found that really rude.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that after class, because we can't really talk about it right now in front of everybody.
And it wasn't Jacob. It wasn't Jacob. It was other guys, but I don't remember their name. I would have remembered his face.
Okay. Well, do you know what, Maria? Let's talk after class, because we're not going to break out into a small group anyways right now. So let's talk about it after class, and I can discuss things with people because there is a sense that, especially when we're talking about morality, we just want to be fair with others and open. And I generally find people are good about it. So let's talk about it afterwards. Anyways, let's talk about what we did talk about in our small groups. Let's see. So we had the scenario. And the scenario, of course, listed out the idea of somebody who's just like, what? You're going to teach morality in a class? What's going on? Can you really do that? What were some groups talking about? What did you find?
I can start it off. Our group was kind of talking about how we don't feel like it's bound by religion at all. And like there are definitely ways that you can incorporate religion into it. For example, like if you're in a Catholic school and talk about maybe like Christian and Catholic moral values. But if you're teaching in a public school, you can also make the point of like, it's not necessarily bound by religion. And it's generally a good thing to have like moral values in society that are not bound by religion at all.
Yeah. So to build off of that, Andrew, the reading I gave you from Thomas Lacona about character education. Thomas Lacona is actually a Catholic, and when he got doing this work, he realized it wasn't just for Catholic schools. So it's not, when you read the book, it's nothing religious per se, but it's more of a general character education. So you're right on there for sure. Thanks for that. How about someone else?
Me and Peter were just talking about how personal of a question this is, and how like in answering it, it really has to be something you speak from your own experience, just because like it is kind of like there's a lot of underpinnings you have to get into. And because like who are you to determine right or wrong is really a philosophical question. And so there's a lot of background you may have to dive into to get into that discussion. And so leaving it as a way of opinion and just like morality is a good thing. I've seen it in my own life, and I've tried to live this Catholic morality, and it's the best thing that I've seen. And so I want to share that, and leaving it on a personal level is, I think, the best way to really answer this question.
Yeah. In considering this is just you talking with another university student. Yeah, that can make sense, especially if you're at a religious-based school. You're like, well, it kind of fits in with the ethos of the school, so it kind of works together. Thanks, Adam. How about someone else? Jason.
Oh, sorry. I was going to speak for Sierra. She actually mentioned a really good point, and she's not going to bring it up probably, but
Then do it, please.
There's actual like scientific evidence behind thickening of the cortex, as mentioned in the video. So Sierra mentioned that, and I think that's a really good point to bring up.
Sierra, why don't you unpack that a little bit more for us?
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. So yeah, I was watching over the video, and it was really interesting because I took a like adolescent psych development class last semester, so that tied in a lot with that. But I think when it comes to talking about morality, most of the time we talk about like philosophical things and being kind to other people. So it was interesting to see that there are more physical and I guess social benefits in acting in a moral dimension, and then of course how that will bleed into like the spiritual intelligence as well.
Yep, doesn't it? It moves right into that. Definitely. Good. And what I find it like that idea that there's this moral feeling to it. Like for some reason, I always thought just morality, like you're saying, in that philosophical sense. But no, when we actually sit down, if we have two kids fighting or children fighting, we got to talk about it. Well, it's a back and forth. And what you're trying to do, for instance, is gain empathy or to get a sense of when you do something good, it makes you feel good, right? For religious believers, you might say, well, that's because you're made in God's image and likeness. Like that's resonating with your source, right? So good. Thanks, Surya. Someone else.
I can add on something. So we kind of talked about how it can kind of be seen as tying into religion, because Jesus talks about all these like virtues and like what's good and what's bad. So like there's kind of like the morality of it. But if you just look at like the components of a good character, like moral, knowing, feeling, and action, nowhere in here does it say religion at all. But there's kind of hints that religion can be tied into it. Like for example, like loving, like God is love, Jesus is love, like that's like like his message and all that.
Yeah.
But like nowhere in it does it actually say anything about religion. And I just think the overall goal of like teaching about morality is to put the knowing and feeling, or like the cognitive and the affective, into action. So like just creating habits and kind of educating them on like what to do in like certain situations and like different perspective taking. And so there's like that ethno culture, like different ethnocultures.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what we talked about, that it can kind of be seen as getting tied into it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
That's right. It doesn't have to be. It's not forcing somebody else's moral beliefs on somebody, but just to get these basic ideas about building up character, and that surely we can all agree that having courage is a good thing, honesty, respect for others, right? Understanding these kind of basic moral principles, that these are good things in a democracy, and it's good in a Catholic or in a Christian school and in the religious beliefs, right? It supports that. And I know that this argument, one counterpoint too, is just to think, every decision we make is a moral decision, right? It's kind of scary when we think about it, whether it be the food we eat, the clothes we wear, what we watch. It's all a moral decision and what we're supporting. And I don't want to make people like super uptight or anxious about our moral life, right? But where were our clothes made? Did the person make a fair wage, right? The food I ate, how are the animals treated? How are the workers at that, I don't know, chicken farm treated? Right? All these questions. So it's not like morality can just be walked away from, right? And education is inherently a moral act. And so it's good to realize that when you're a teacher, you're automatically a moral educator, because you're working with other people, setting limits, you're modeling behaviors and whatnot. So it's already being done. And it's just a matter of, do we stop and think about what are the morals that I want to promote, and really advocate for that, and try to live it out. Good. Who haven't we heard from yet? Who haven't we? Anyone else got something to say on this topic?
Yeah, just kind of building off what you said, something that our group talked about is how morality isn't really based off of a set binary of right and what's wrong. They're not like two separate components. You kind of have to it's kind of circumstantial with morality, and kind of like building up that critical thinking and competency on doing what's right in that certain situation.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's often when we think of with morality, people just get nervous about it because of black and white thinkers that just think, it's black and it's white, and who's right and wrong, and people judging. But really, you're right. One circumstances, right? Like, do I do something freely? if I do something freely, then it's probably going to be more right or more wrong, or in that decision making. Whereas if I accidentally do something, right? There's different ways to break it down. Hopefully, if you take CHRTC 250, you can get a little more in depth with it. But you're exactly right. That's not to say that whatever, that everything's equal, and that, you know, running over a old lady with a big truck is just as good as giving her a good meal. Well, of course, you know, like, one is bad and one is good. We can surely agree on that. So there is, but in situations, our moral culpability or our responsibility for our actions, we can have a greater influence or lesser. So something to think about. Thanks for that, Jaladen, because it's an important clarification. So I know this is an introduction. That's why I think of my outcome, I just say state. We don't have much time to get into it, but hopefully be thinking about, and if we talk about permeation, this is a way to permeate your daily living. I had one student in the past, he said his classroom discipline was do not steal. He took it from the 10 Commandments and he said, do not steal. Do not steal ideas. Do not steal things. Do not steal a reputation. And that's how he lined it up. And what I liked about it was that it was a clear moral statement about how you were to act in his classroom. You might think of another way to do it, but it's good to even be thinking about our classroom discipline in those terms. Good. Let's move along. Let's move along. I'll do the screen share. Okay. So thanks for your insights there. Now, I wanted to highlight this diagrams. One group had laid this out so nicely, and we've already spoken about it, but those three components, that's really key to have a sense of, and the depth of it. And it's not just about who's right and wrong, right? We're trying to say, how do we become moral beings and make our decisions? It's not just telling somebody what's right and wrong, but you have to feel it and gain your knowledge. And then when they're out of school, they'll make good decisions. All right, the spiritual dimension. So this one, I don't know, I think people said last week they hadn't really heard about this in their education studies before. It's a growing field in the literature. But one thing that I wanted to highlight was some groups, I thought it was kind of neat. They use some images. So I'm going to turn it over to some other group members. This is one thing. Allison, can I put you on the spot? Or could you describe what's going on here, or should somebody else in your group?
No, I can do it. So I don't know if anyone else has had the experience to do a smudging ceremony, but I think it's like the first time in my life I've really felt connected to something beyond our physical realm, coming from someone who hasn't been raised in the church experience. So I don't know, I just thought it was really nice. And after the smudging ceremony occurred, I was actually given a rock from an elder that had been blessed by basically all the ancestors that have ever been a part of their life. And you're supposed to carry it with you basically and know that they're always with you. So I don't know, it was just a really nice experience, and we wanted to kind of share our spirituality through pictures because it's kind of hard to describe through words.
Yeah, that's great. I put one more. I had to put this of you jumping up here, tongue wagging. I had to include this. Somebody else want to comment, or you can again?
No, it's okay, Brayden.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, for this slide, we kind of just showed how like there's different ways to kind of get spirituality. Like obviously there's the religion class where you kind of learn like the theoretical aspects of it and you can appreciate it more. But you also got to remember that just in everyday living, like the kind of top pictures are just all of us in nature, and how you can just kind of appreciate, like, you know, God created the heavens and the earth. You can like see, especially when you're in like beautiful areas, you can kind of appreciate it to a deeper degree and like honestly feel like God to a deeper degree. And then the bottom slide, like my picture is just with a bunch of friends. So that kind of just goes with the fact that like they kind of help you become more spiritual and more like moral dimensions, depending on who you're hanging out with, I guess. But like, you know, if your friends have certain good habits, you're probably going to pick them up. If they have the vices that we were talking about before, you might pick those up too. So you kind of got to make sure that you're aware of everything.
What struck me about this image, Braden, is that it's in groups, right? Like a team or a collection of folks. There's that connectedness, right? And oftentimes in spirituality, it's a realizing that I can actually sense me as a part of something bigger. And so when we're with other people, we sense that. Like our bodies kind of are aware of that. In sports, even, or in moments of play, we can feel like not only do I feel a part of a team, but I can almost be a part of someone else if we're really connected, which just, it's a strange kind of phenomenological occurrence in our lives, but it kind of, for religious people, it points, yeah, our existence isn't just about us. We're connected with someone larger. So cool. I like those. So thanks for letting me share those with the class. This is a short scenario. I'm just going to give you a moment to think about it, and then we'll talk about it. So I'll read it. So think for yourself for a minute. This is a parent to a teacher. A spiritual dimension? Is that some far out thing from the 1960s? Explain the thinking or science behind this spiritual dimension. How will it benefit my teacher when learning religion or in another classroom? So how will it benefit my teenager, this parent saying, when learning in religion or maybe in another classroom? So I'll give you a minute to think about it.
I can talk about this.
Well, we got another 15 seconds, Jason. I'm going to give everybody
Oh,
a
my
full minute
apologies.
to think about it.
Okay.
Okay, good. That's been a minute. Let's hear it.
So just in my personal experience, I've taken like outdoor education. So it just like going back to the last slide with nature, like just being in nature just allows like an individual to use all of their senses. So like they can see like well obviously all the senses. And it just allows for like a nice like a personal reflection and a personal um kind of experiences, which is kind of what the spiritual dimension is about. Is about looking within. So
Yeah, good
yeah.
example, right, with nature. Yeah. That reminds me of the layperson's catechism, right? The Frenchman that put that, and the first things he mentions are the five senses. So definitely. Okay, so let's get in. What else? So there's an example from experience. Thanks, Jason. How about something else?
I think I just bring the same kind of idea. Like, if we're going to educate, we're going to try and educate to a whole person. And a spiritual aspect is just a part of who someone is. And so if we're going to, like, when we're teaching math, we're not teaching math to robots, we're teaching math to people. And so there's just going to be a spiritual dimension to everything we do as humans because spirituality is part of who we are. And so the spiritual dimension is important to recognize because it lets us actually be better educators because we know what we're doing and what we're dealing with. And so we don't have to leave, like, we don't have to check certain parts of ourselves at the door when we're going into a class. So we can talk about like everything is a part of what we're doing in every class. It isn't just segmented.
I think that's great. I think, recognizing they're people, they're human beings with us. And the other point is that we can get lost in worrying about that they get a job, that, am I being productive? These kind of thinking that we worry about, which is important as well, the kind of the more immediate, but they're also people, and we want happy people. And we can obviously see the mental health struggles that we have in our society today. And this spirituality is an important response to it. Lexi, I haven't heard much from you since our prayer. Do you got an idea here? Can I put you on the spot?
Sure. As the slide said about in the 1960s, I think that mental health issues were definitely prevalent back then, but people didn't really take them into consideration. You were depressed, we'll just feel better. That's what they would say. But now we definitely consider that. And it's such a huge aspect of who teenagers are. It's just natural. And so we really need to teach on that spiritual level to help bring them into a good place of mind and remind them that they are important and that they're valued. So that's
Yeah, good. Can you, Lexi, or another student remember anything from the video with Dr. Lisa Miller that she kind of made some connections here and to find out what spirituality was? Anything strikes anyone?
She talked about, right, like the children who had a spiritual dimension were proved to be more resilient and had more of what she pointed to, and like she talked about virtue without using the V word. Like basically the children who had a spiritual core were more virtuous, and so they had more resilience. And then that's the thickened frontal cortex, or the thickened cortex that Sierra was talking about, is they were just better off in a lot of different ways because of the spirituality that they had.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Super. Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. Jadalyn, what were you thinking? I know your group did a good job of writing these things up.
Yeah, so I kind of talked about in our mini project about how adolescents are going through a period of identity and they're kind of trying to figure that out. And that kind of relates to like the prefrontal cortex thing a little bit. And during this time of them building up their development as teachers, we can kind of guide them through spiritual dimension by like, because they could ground themselves with spiritual dimension, kind of find themselves with who they are, and by guiding them through that, then we can definitely get them to help find themselves.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's in one sense finding themselves is finding their identity. And the problem, of course, we often find our identity in what we do and what we're successful at, right? All of you are at university, you're smart. At least some, if not a lot of your identity is based on being a university student, right? It's what you do. The challenge, and I think this is where religion can be really supportive, is that we find identity in a larger story. Like for Christianity, it's a matter of saying that I'm loved by God unconditionally. So whatever I do and screw up, I know I'm loved. I'm made in God's image and likeness. And if we take that basis in a religious belief, that spiritual belief, that can kind of carry us through some tough times, can't it? And I know in Lisa Miller's book, she's got a great story at the start. She's on the subway in New York, a beggar's on the subway, and everybody's scared of them and moves away to the other end of the car. And this grandma and her daughter and her granddaughter come on. They sit down, and this beggar comes up to them, and they start talking. And what Lisa Miller struck with is how they could, the granddaughter and the grandmother could connect and reach out to this man in love and kindness. And it was somehow, they had some religious basis for doing this, but it was powerful in that they weren't scared and they were able to reach out and be within themselves. And it's kind of powerful stuff. So what I'm hoping you get from this too is that we don't want a religion that's closed-minded, that's scared of others, but hopefully the research can help us cultivate and think about when we trust others, when we build connections, when we're trying to be moral people, it builds us and makes us stronger and makes us more resilient. It's good for us and it's good for society. It's good for the church too. Any final questions on this? All right, good. I am just going to finish off the screen share. I think I just have what we're doing next week left. Okay. All right. These were a couple of slides I put on here. One group, thanks to this group, they put up these couple of the brain scans and then this model. That's good to help think how we see the development together. All right. So for next week, again, there's just a short reading on professional responsibilities, and then there's a mini lecture by yours truly, and then the rest of the week, and then the next week is all to set up your lesson plans and to teach them. So I'm anticipating that you teach with everybody present and that then you get feedback. Please send your feedback within 24 hours of that person as they're mulling over their own reflection and analysis. Okay. And then if you don't hear, if somebody isn't showing up, please reach out to me, because I get to follow attendance and stuff. And I just want to make sure everybody gets a fair kick at the cat. Okay. And other than that, I want to make sure to say happy Easter as well to you and your families and friends. Okay. Any final questions?
Hi, I just have one quick question. Do we have any more group projects lined up for the rest of the semester, or are we done?
There will just be a small mini group, a mini project in the last week, but there's not one next week or the week after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The assignment due date, I don't think I settled on this. This is crazy, a prof that doesn't settle on a deadline, but let's just say a week after you present. And if you can't do that, reach out to me, okay? But tentatively just a week after, because I don't want them all coming in on the last day of classes. I'd like to have them back to you by the last day of classes is the ideal. So you kind of know before going into your final exam what you got. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you want me to look or give feedback on something. If you need the resources, I've got the resources if you need in order to teach like a grade 12 on like a morality and virtue. Okay. Good. Well, let's say goodbye then. You can unmute. Why don't we say happy Easter this year, eh? This year. Okay. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Bye-bye.
Happy Easter.
All the best. See you in your lesson plans.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Hoven, I just wanted to verify that you are going to be supplying the peer review sheet, right?
I think it's already there in
is it?
class,
Okay.
is it not?
Perfect.
I believe
I'll
it's
take a
there.
look.
Okay,
Okay.
if it's not there, please reach out to me. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. Yeah,
Bye.
see you, Jason.
Happy Easter.
Yeah, happy Easter. Hi, Peter and Maria. Peter, did you have a quick question?
No.